In 1998, I was the marketing director for the Game Developers Conference, Gamasutra, and Game Developer Magazine, which are the three big trade media outlets for the games industry. And we couldn't get legitimate press to come cover the Game Developers Conference in 1998. We would reach out, and it sounds crazy, but mainstream media would be like, games are for teenage boys, they're not a real market. And it was really hard to get people to come, except for Dean, which is either a reflection of the fact that Dean at that time, as the main games reporter at the, were you at the Mercury at that time or the Chronicle? You were at the Chronicle. At the San Francisco Chronicle, are you at the Journal at that time? When did you go to the Chronicle? Okay, that's ridiculous. Okay, sorry, at the Mercury News. So Dean was at the San Jose Mercury News or at the Wall Street Journal, and he was like one of the first like mainstream journalists to come and cover the GDC, which was kind of awesome. But now you know him as lead writer for GamesBeat at VentureBeat, which is one of the most important outlets for startups and technology. He covers video games, security, chips, and a variety of other subjects. Dean also is the author of 2 books, Opening the Xbox and the Xbox 360 Uncloaked. And now I'll hand it over to Dean. Thanks so much, Dean.
Thanks, Gabe, for the nice introduction there. And I just wanted to point out that VentureBeat runs a game conference as well called GamesBeat. And as we were planning another conference about 6-7 months ago or so, we thought about making a gamification conference ourselves. And we decided against it because it seemed like such a small thing at the time, right? And so I'm thrilled that Gabe actually has taken such a lead on this and sold out his very first conference. That's amazing. So congratulations for that. It takes foresight to sort of be on top of a trend. And I'm a little disappointed that Gabe has sort of put us so late in the day after everybody has been trashing point systems all day long as, sort of like so 1999 or so inadequate, I guess. And I think our open with a question to our panelists there. First, to just introduce everybody, can you introduce yourselves and talk about, I guess, what you guys do with points, and then we'll get into the next question, the more controversial one right after that.
Sounds good. I'm Carol Shaw, and I'm a live producer for NG Mocha. We make games for the iPhone and Android, iOS, actually. And I run the games when they're in the live service phase, so I manage the virtual economies.
I'm Samantha Skey, and I'm CRO for Recycle Bank, and we use points to motivate green action among mainstream consumers.
Amit Fulay, product manager, Google. I work in the commerce team. Prior to Google, I was director of product management at a startup called Jambool. We were a leading virtual economy monetization platform before it got acquired by Google in August 2010.
Hi, Nomi from Peanut Labs, co-founder and CEO. Peanut Labs is a monetization engine very similar to what Jambool did, just focusing on market research. And for points and our application of points, we've worked with a whole lot of game companies out there and deal with virtual economies so that they can monetize their users better. Before Peanut Labs, the company that I was involved with, we had social games ourselves, so been dealing with points for about 7-8 years by now.
Mark Michael, co-founder, Evo Media Group, makers of DevHub.com. Basically, what we're trying to do and what we actually are doing is turning the process of building a website into a game. We use points to gauge where the user's at in that process, whether it's simply changing a background or uploading a logo or plugging in their Twitter information. So basically, we use it as a gauge to see where they're at in the overall process when they at least call in.
So just throwing it out to everybody, are points sort of obsolete? Gamification is advancing at a very fast pace here, and people like Jane McGonigal are saying that these are more like bells and whistles, but they're not capturing, say, the spirit of games. Maybe But can you address why having a good point system is important still?
I'll do it kind of basically in my intro, but well, we call them experience points, first off. And we use it, like I said before, to gauge where the user is at. I mean, without the points, we have no idea if they did basically nothing or they did something. And with those points, they're able to level up, obviously, from being a novice website builder to a more professional one by adding the SEO elements that are needed to make a small business site rank within Google.
To an extent, I would agree. I think points are not 99, probably early 90s. But what does it say about us if we still haven't incorporated them properly in our experiences? So are they obsolete? No. But are they really old? Yes.
I feel like I'm a part of Points Defense Coalition group here, which wasn't my intention. But I think points is not the goal itself. Points is just a means to an end. In the user's mind, points is nothing but a feedback mechanism about the time that they've spent in your game or system, whether the time or money that they spend. So it's nothing but a feedback mechanism. So I feel like it's not points for the sake of it, but it should be something that's derivative from what your end goal is. There are a lot of really good loyalty systems. I know a lot of speakers have quoted frequent flyer programs, but I just want to throw out one system that I was studying in Japan called T-Points. It's a universal point system in Japan. It's a loyalty system. They have a huge network of participating retailers, gas stations, CDs, DVDs, books. And the Japanese people are really obsessed with earning T-points. Wherever you go in Japan, people are actually swiping the T-point cards, making sure they're accruing these points and getting to the next redemption level. So that's a great example that you should look at, creating a very good redemption option that drives users into a system. So points are means to an end. And for me, they represent a feedback that users get to see with whatever you want them to do.
Like you, I feel like a points sympathizer, and I think that, and like you, I think points are not, they're a means to an end, and whether you call them points, chits, bricks, tweets, followers, friends, likes, they're a recognition of an action that bridges between the action and some kind of value that you're delivering back to the user. So, and I think it's very 2003 to call points very 1999, by the way. And I think it's that if they're far, far, far older than 1999. Loyalty systems go way the hell back, and they continue to prevail because they're fairly effective in a lot of cases if you don't flood the market with points, diminish the value by giving them, by giving participants points for breathing, but actually assign a true action, a true allocation of points that equate to a real value that a consumer can experience in the world. And that's what Recycle Bank does. We're looking at actual actions. We're intent agnostic. People don't need to feel like they're saving the world or don't have to be green sympathizers, but if they put the can in the right bin, we're going to give them points. If they reduce their energy, we'll give them more points. And those points are things that have true monetary value. They're not just, badges like the cute ones on your thing. You've got 3. He has 3 colors, just so you guys know. There's a lot of bling there. Anyway, that's what we think.
So the only thing I'll add to that is I think that the market is being flooded with a lot of point systems that just aren't that fun. So it's really easy to see why people would get tired of them and think that they're old. So the challenge to me is make a point system that's fun, and we won't have this discussion next year if there are more point systems that we can point to that are like, oh my God, that's great. I totally want to play with that, and I want to have the aspirational qualities that are there. That's what I'm after. That's what I want. So if we can make them fun and bring the visibility that way, that's really got to be our goal.
So what are some basics of doing it right and doing it wrong, and maybe if you can apply some of your own experience into that, turning the knobs so they're just right, I guess.
Yeah, I think that we spend a lot of time doing that. I mean, I make games, so I'm not the traditional gamification representative because I actually just make games with my points. But I think that what we've learned a lot about at NGMoko is, how to put the tuning knobs in so that we can really manage the economy, so that instead of just saying, oh, people love red buttons because everyone clicks on red buttons and we should use nothing but red buttons, we actually look at the data to try and understand where our player base is on the level distribution, how many points they have at that level, what might make them aspire to get to the next level. Let's tune the game so that that becomes a fun goal for them instead of just ignoring all of that and just assuming that we know what's right because we're game developers.
I think some of the things you can do, right and wrong, is understanding breakage, understanding the degree to which participants value points and the right assignment of points or whatever value we're using, whatever currency makes sense, and equating that to the action and the impact associated with that action. So there is a pretty complex ecosystem in there, and if you give away too many points, the value is diminished and participation or engagement will inevitably wane. So I think showcasing not only sort of the more difficult actions or the more intense engagement moments, a more significant value proposition, and ensuring that participants also have real attainable rewards or things that they can use their points for, because we're not in the business of points for the sake of points. We show a true monetary and social value for the points that are earned. And then secondly, having aspirational opportunities that will advance someone along a continuum so that they're getting stuff all the time, but they're also engaged longitudinally in an interest of attaining something greater.
I'll just say one quick thing, which is a sign of a good point system is having some kind of status or a leveling system, because the number itself is meaningless to users unless they can accrue points to get into some kind of an exclusive level or club. So whether it's a platinum, gold, whatever you want to call it, that's what really that's what is a great incentive for users.
It's really hard to add on to everything that you guys have already said. But I will tie all of these concepts to an example, and this is from my previous company that I founded, Zukka. It was a social network turned into a social game. But to Amit's point, we introduced levels there, called them the same: silver, gold, platinum. And for platinum level, people had to almost pay about $100 a month just to have enough, I guess, bling to get to that level. And this was in Turkey, and we had enough people doing this. We never understood why, up until we realized that people in Turkey, at least a very core group, were actually comparing their points off-site. So it's almost the value of the points that get the user. And points since then, how we used in our measurement, so to speak, was we do everything else, and points just, or rather the demand and the value of point just let us know how effectively and efficiently we've done the rest of the part. Because point is just to measure how good of a job you've done everywhere else.
I'm just going to agree with the panel. Go ahead.
How about how do you screw up a point system?
I mean, at a certain point, again, in our example of website building, I mean, the initial concept was, building a building, much like a SimCity meets like a WordPress, meets like an AdSense. And at a certain point, the site is basically just, it's done. I mean, they come back to update it, and yes, they can earn kind of like more, I guess, badges and points. But at a certain point, 100,000 points makes no sense. Actually, we're trying to figure out what to do with those points, either cash them in for a domain name or something. But at a certain point, 100,000 looks just kind of ridiculous, at least in our scenario of building a site.
I think there are probably a few ways to get it right, and everything else you can do is probably to screw it up. And like the story I just told about our own points, that was a success story, but we screwed it up probably for around a year before we got to that. And more often than not, it's usually flooding the system with more points. And to your point, it really is like, soon enough you would have enough points, currency, whatever you might want to call it, in the system, and then you go like, well, what do I do now? and then you have to create sinks or create more value of that point. But I guess at the end of the day, the easiest way to screw it up is by flooding it.
I think a lot of game designers focus on how can users earn points, and the sync aspect or the redemption aspect comes in the latter part stages of design, but that's the most critical thing in users' mind. So paying attention to that upfront is critical. You make any system, any point system too easy to earn, users lose interest. It goes back to some of the themes that we had around challenge being an integral part of what gets us to play games. You make it too difficult to attain a level or too expensive to do things with the points, again, users would lose interest. So it's like
8
that
million
elastic
miles
band.
and you get a free magazine subscription, right? Or, no.
It's like that elastic band, which is at its optimal strength. At a certain point, you stretch it too hard, it breaks. You keep it too loose. So I think that's a very fine balance that it's tough to get, but you iterate, you start small, and you kind of measure, and hopefully you find that sweet spot.
Yeah, I would agree that making sure you're calibrating what makes sense for the specific audience you're serving. So if it's an audience who wants to get something every day, who's eager to redeem daily, then having some little meaningful acquisition opportunity for those people, but then also accommodating those who like the challenge of climbing a leaderboard or climbing into a greater level of difficulty or excellence or achievement or something else. Those people's egos need to be managed as well. The other, I'd say flooding totally is a problem and diminishes value of points. Maintaining enough earn opportunities is another thing. So if you can only earn points from one sort of obscure consumer engagement moment, then that's not going to be very, very valuable and is going to prohibit or inhibit the ability to actually redeem things that have value. For point systems that have a true market value associated, as Recycle Banks does, there's a huge potential problem with the liability that points carry. So you have to recognize them on your balance sheet as you're giving them out. If you give out too many and are not generating enough monetizable value through the engagement that you're requesting of your participants, then you're in that's very bad. It's never happened to us.
Again, I think flooding has definitely been the biggest issue. But for me, we try and treat our economy like it's a real economy. So we are constantly monitoring it on a daily basis, making tweaks, making changes, so that the next day we come in and see if it's more in balance. And I think that keeps user engagement high because they know that we're out there, we're changing things so that it is structured in a way that they want to continue playing with our games. So treat it like a real economy. Don't ignore it after you ship it. To me, that's the cardinal sin, is just launching something and then never tuning it again.
What have you learned about how users react to different things you do? I'm reminded of the book Catch-22, where the bomber pilots in World War II were told that they could go home after they completed 25 missions, right? And then it became 30 missions, and then it was 40 missions or 50 missions. And then at some point they realized that they were never going home, right? So the users at that point, right, didn't care about the point system.
We communicate with our customers through a lot of different social channels. We try and get their feedback from either Twitter or Facebook, or start through our customer service channels. We have a very active, ongoing conversation with a lot of different fan sites that support our game and are good gathering places for our community. And we, run ideas out past them when we have ideas of things that we might want to try. That's been pretty fun to run trial balloons past our users, our customers, I prefer to call them. And that's been very effective for us, and it lets them feel like they're participating in the game development, which for our point system has been pretty successful, because it lets them know that we're talking to them and thinking about them and wanting to include them.
I don't have much to add to that except that delivering. I think to your sad story of the vets, that making sure you're delivering on something to the participants so that they are getting something, and they recognize value in the points is really critical. The other thing that I thought of was that there are points that are recognizable, like air miles or sky miles, and then there are loads of points systems out there that are not recognizable. And if they're not recognizable, showing what you get in exchange for your points right away in real time is pretty important if you want to drive engagement. So, in other words, if it's a Coca-Cola, My Coke Rewards, very well recognized point system, people who participate in that program understand what My Coke Rewards is, and they are accruing points all the time in order to get rewards. If it's a lesser-known brand or a lesser-known program of points, you have to sort of shove the value forward in a very visible way to the participant, because the points themselves will have little meaning. So in other words, get 100 points, immediately get your composting garden redone.
I think the biggest difference in that story versus users in most of our products now, the sad part is those soldiers did not have a choice. Our users do. You don't deliver on what you promise, they leave. There are enough products out there, and there are enough competing products out there in all verticals, in all categories, that if a user feels either cheated or feels that, I think this is more than just the point system. If the user feels he's not getting enough value out of any product out there, they would just leave and go to another product. So I think it's more than just points, but even to points, a product should only have a point system, a virtual economy, or what have you, if it is needed and if you can do it right. Not all products out there deserve it. If it applies well, sure, do it. You said frequent flyer miles. It has been going on for decades, and it still is working. I don't know if it would work with the Gen Y audience anymore because of the instant gratification versus delayed gratification part, but for a lot of people, it still works. So I think it varies, and just to sum it up, if you don't deliver on your promise, people just leave.
Quickly, in our scenario, it's in kind of like the web publishing space. We originally launched with about 4 tracks. You can build a site, a blog site, an affiliate product site, a small business site, and like a social media profile site. What we did was we partnered with over 40 ad networks, lead gen networks, affiliate networks. We're like, we're going to encourage bloggers to actually make money, whether it's AdSense or a lead gen ad. So it's not just, again, dependent on just an AdSense, but all the ways to make money. And then, of course, we added the game layer to it. We found out within basically the first week that once they got into doing a blog, no blogger wanted to earn points or badges or anything. The affiliate people just don't care because they hack WordPress together and put a lead gen ad on it. And social media profile made no sense for points or badges anyway. And so the only one that actually made sense was the whole small business market, which then ended up becoming a private label to the Yellow Pages industry. But right now, if you go to devhub.com, it has all 4 tracks on there, and it's going to be transitioned to only small business sites by the end of next week. But that's what happened with us. Bloggers didn't really care about points. So, in our scenario.
Does anybody have experience with dual point systems too? Something like Facebook credits going along.
We have, like I said, we have
Zynga's points.
Yeah, we have XP coins and actually dollars too. So dollars actually purchase something if someone doesn't want to earn the coins. And I think for us, again, for the small business scenario where they don't want to just fill in a template, but they actually want to know what again, SEO is, or how to plug in their Facebook feed. It makes sense for them. But again, for like the other tracks that we were kind of initially targeting, we have a website builder for everybody, and everybody's going to love building a game. It's like SimCity, like I said, WordPress and AdSense. It just didn't work for that whole market. And so we run with a dual point economy. We plug it into the marketplace, and again, they're creating something of value, a site that actually helps their business, not just a blog with a lead gen ad on it. So.
We got 5 minutes. Does anybody have questions?
First off, I'm sure a lot of us didn't mean to put you on the spot on points all day, but I think one of the core issues in why there's resentment, perhaps, toward points is, you brought up a great point. You said it should be treated like a real economy. But the problem is it's only one specific type of economy every single one of you have been talking about, a very post-throwaway consumer economy based on achievement. Now, what about those tribal economies, economies based on reputation, economies based on giving, economies where you don't earn the points for yourself to reward yourself, but the community grants you points based on your reputation? Like you're saying with websites, right? You have 100,000 points. But what if in that way I could then donate those points to provide internet services for a nonprofit charity, right? So this conversion of, instead of thinking as a throwaway post-consumer America points, I think that's the cynicism you're feeling from the community of designers, where we don't want to keep feeding the beast. We really want to use gamification to change the world and the way people experience it that way. So what do you guys think about that? Boom. No, I'm just kidding.
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, really quick, I mean, we agreed. When we see the 100,000 points, obviously this person knows what they're doing. It's what do they do with them, and then exactly that same scenario. It's like, yeah, maybe they can help, their buddy or whoever it is, and help them upgrade that template without actually having to pay for the template. And hey, by the way, here's how you do it. Exactly. I mean, that's, yeah.
Cool.
Sorry, I want to thank you for that question because that rocks. And Recycle Bank uses we are using our points to generate eco action in communities, and the more you do within your community, the more points you're getting. You can donate those points back to Green Schools, a Green Schools program, back to Build Parks. So it's the entire economy is sort of based on a action, recognition, and then reward. And those rewards, we hope the side of us that wants likewise to use gamification dynamics to change the world hopes that not only are we changing behaviors by awarding points, behaviors that will help us to advance a world without waste, but also we are allowing people to give and to take actions and to win the opportunity by accruing points to do something good. And for those who don't, the douchebags who don't do that way, they can go get a coupon with their coup.
This side on.
Hey, I have a follow-up to gamification for social good, social change. I mean, a lot of, basic intrinsic motivation is, what you would need to create long-term behavior changes, especially when it comes to saving the environment or, saving the, recycling, in your case. But it doesn't introducing point systems and other types of reward systems in a way dilute the that experience and maybe just restrict that behavior change to short-term self-interested versus a long-term change?
Yeah, you talked about saving the environment. I think carbon footprint and measuring the carbon footprint is nothing but a point system that helps you kind of have a notion of whatever work you're putting in and trying to be eco-friendly can be measured in certain respects. So if you treat points as something that's captures a bunch of disparate actions that you might take and help you, think of it as a metric, I think it's very applicable.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that it's a great question to ask in San Francisco, where people tend to recycle because they understand it's the correct thing to do. But there's a huge swath of consumers who are not jumping on board with the sustainability movement and who don't believe that we're sitting on a melting rock here. So that those people like games and like points, and so if we can get them to put the can or the bottle in the right bin and to get recognized for it and to get sort of into, to begin that kind of gateway drug to eco-sensitivity through something that's easy, and we remain intent agnostic, which does, admittedly, they may be doing it for the points, they may be doing it for the fun of seeing that they're recycling more than their neighbor, and we are inherently saying that we're intent agnostic, but that if you do that thing for a long enough period of time, there's good evidence that you'll continue to do it once the points are taken away, if they ever are. So it's not a flawless concept at all, but I think it has a lot of merits of sort of proven behavior change. And we've been around for 6 years and have seen really consistent increases in recycling, energy reduction, et cetera, in communities that did not previously engage in those activities.
So I got the signal we got one last question, so it's going to be you.
Thanks. First, just thank you guys. It's really interesting what you've been sharing. I come out of the traditional loyalty program space where we have been really for decades doing point systems. And you guys kind of sound like my analyst team at my company because they're all about predictive models for breakage and accrual rates and who's going to redeem and who isn't. But the overwhelming market research data in our space is that engagement in consumer loyalty programs is on the decline, and we don't expect that to change, which is why some of us are here trying to figure out what's the next evolution. And part of it, I think, is because consumers are getting burnt out on traditional sort of points and reward structure. I think Recycle Bank is an awesome sort of change for that. My question to you is, do you think you can create a powerful, meaningful, gamified experience that has no point system?
I mean,
That's a heavy rain in the video game business, right?
I would say, just and again in our experience, and maybe it's answering your question, maybe it's not. But I mean, where we started about 3 years ago, and again doing websites and building a website builder among another 1,000 website builders that are out there for free. What we got kind of lucky with was that there was actually platforms out there, in the gamification, game mechanics space that allowed us to really test kind of what worked and what didn't work, whether it was points, coins, dollars, badges, whatever. And actually the cost of having a whole tech team dedicated to building out our own database and everything was basically diminished when basically the platforms that you see out there, namely Big Door, allowed us to basically test on the side for a good 4-6 months prior to launching. When we launched within 2 days, and we basically figured out pretty quickly that it would work, at least again in our scenario in the small business space. But again, I think the platforms that are available now allow you to kind of A/B test pretty quickly what works and what doesn't work, which wasn't available, I think, maybe a year ago.
I think we need to also just step back and define what we call points. To Amit's, what Amit was saying before, like carbon footprint. Is it just a point system, or is it more? At the end of the day, it really comes down to what you value, and if that value is good enough for all the parties to be engaged in it, for the experience to be more engaging. You talked about loyalty program, which I think, yes, it is in decline, but that's also because of the generational shift from instant gratification that the people now expect out of everything versus 10 years ago. Now points is originally like frequent flyer miles or any other loyalty program, they're usually points. Now if you replace the original points by saying in the retailer space just giving out discounts, or you're giving out exclusive access to pre-sale content. It still is to an extent, it's not a point, but it still is to an extent some sort of incentive.
It's an economy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like you were saying before, you need to treat it as economy and how people would behave in a real economy, and treat it, if the real economy is changing, so will all programs that have a point system.
All right, we have to run. We're getting the hook.
So quickly, I love that question because that's an awesome challenge. And I think, hopefully that's what we're all here for, is because we want to be doing that next. We want to understand what is going to motivate people. And I'd love to see a great loyalty program that had no points attached to it whatsoever. I think that's a great game design challenge. I'd love to see a GDC game design challenge set up to say, you have a half hour, what would you make? I think that's an awesome, awesome idea. I'd love to work on something like that someday. So, I hope we start seeing things like that in the future.
All right, thanks to our panel, everybody.